All right, this week I'm gonna do a video a little bit differently than I usually do. Last week I did a video on these knives here, which were my 3 suggestions for your first traditional knife, which was the 74 GEC, the 77 GEC, and the 15 GEC. And I went through all the reasons why I would pick one over the other and what the features and qualities of each knife are. On that note, I did talk with one of my buddies, Tattooed Fat Dude, and he said that he has a couple of knives he wants to send me, and I'm going to put that video out as soon as we get together and figure out all the details. But when I put that video up, actually, Nookie Monster 69, he commented on my Instagram post, and he directed me to a guy named SP Kohler, who also is a Usual Suspect Network member. I don't know him, but he sent the suggestion of buying a Schatt Morgan knife, or at least looking at Schatt Morgan knives. So I said, sure, you know, I'm always interested in looking at new things. They hadn't really caught my attention. I did have a Schatt Morgan is made by Queen, if you didn't know that. I did have an Indian River Jack, which is a Northwoods knife, which was built at that time. Well, I think all of them were built by Queen Cutlery. And Queen has been known at best to be hit and miss. I know that the Indian River Jack that I had lived up to all the misses that anyone had ever told me about Queen Cutlery knives. So that kind of steered me away from Schatt Morgan or Schatt Morgan branded knives and Queen Cutlery knives as a whole. But because that suggestion came up, because I do have a fair number of knives, because it's been a while since I tried a Queen knife, because I'm also running this YouTube channel, and I have an Instagram, I said, you know what, I need to pick up the Schatt Morgan to give it a fair chance. So I jumped on eBay, and I was able to find a Schatt Morgan Whittler. I believe it's orange jig bone is the color, but here's the box. Here's the orange jig bone. Number 26 Schatt Morgan Stockman Whittler. This is one of 30. This is a brand new knife. I did, if you already looked at my Instagram this morning, I already cheated. I usually would have opened it up on camera and given you my first impression as soon as I opened it up on camera, but I couldn't wait, so I went on ahead and opened it up. This is the knife in and of itself. Honestly, I am not a fan of the looks of the knife. The general shape of the knife, the Stockman shape, the size I like. Here you can see this is a true split back Whittler, which if you have been following my videos, you know this is my favorite style of knife, the split back Whittler. And what that means, if you're not familiar, the 2 secondary blades, the smaller blades, and I'm going to open up this way so I don't scratch up the main blade. The 2 secondary blades ride on 2 separate springs. So you can see here, these 2 knives have 1 spring apiece. And the main blade has the 2 springs come together into one. And when they come together into one, the main blade rides on that now, what equates to 1 spring. So that's the pattern in and of itself. What I don't like about it, just aesthetically, I'm not a huge fan of this jigging. I'm not a huge fan of this tombstone shield, which I believe is what it's called, tombstone or keyhole, I can't remember. It is fit very well into the knife, into the cover. There are no gaps, but it is pretty proud, and that's kind of what I don't like about the jigging. The jigging is kind of recessed. If you can see here, where they smoothed it out to meet the bolster and the cover material, that is actually higher than where all of this jigging is. And it's the same thing on the back side. Now, I prefer more GEC style jigging, which you can kind of see here. The jigging is slightly below the rounded corners here, but not too much. It's pretty much even with this bolster. I prefer that over this Schatt Morgan design. But again, that's just my personal opinion and my personal preference. And I know I'm biased. I should start by saying that. I know I'm biased because I have pretty much all GEC knives outside of 3 or 4 different knives. So I know I'm biased on this topic. But I did buy the Schatt Morgan to give it a try. You can see here that the blade is very well centered on this knife. I couldn't notice it rubbing either secondary. The secondary blades do appear to be in here very well. You can see there's a little bit of space between the liner and the blade itself on the top blade here, the way I'm holding the knife. And this one, the bottom blade, the way I'm holding the knife, appears to be pretty tight to that liner, but the blades are not scratched up or anything like that from the liner or from the main blade itself. So the fit and finish, I can't really complain about. And I know that when I posted this morning on Instagram, I'm sure a lot of people expected that to be my complaint, the fit and finish. The fit and finish actually isn't that awful. Just showing you here, there's no rub marks. That's just grease and oil. No rub marks. The fit and finish really, well, I guess I should say the fit really isn't my main complaint with the blade. I'm not a fan of the aesthetics. I don't like the jigging. I don't necessarily like this orange color. This main blade, when you pull it out, it's very gritty. When I opened it the first time, it felt like there were rocks in the pivot. I think that the size overall is very good. And again, if you don't know, I wear an extra large glove. My hand is 4 inches from here to here. And this is a very good size knife. Very useful size. I don't necessarily care for the slenderness of the main blade. The shape I also don't necessarily care for, but that's just me. Excuse me. But that's just me. I'm sorry, this focus is crazy. I do like the fact that, I don't know, and I didn't compare this side by side, but it seems like either this blade is thicker, which I don't think it is, or they've laid the edge back some more. The edge is more acute, which makes it a better slicer. And it does feel pretty sharp. At least this main blade feels pretty sharp. You can see that bevel is fairly wide there, where again, comparing it to a Great Eastern cutlery knife with a factory edge, you can see that bevel is pretty fine. So they don't generally lay their edges back as far. Their edges are more obtuse on Great Eastern cutlery knives, which, if you're familiar with sharpening and edge angles and all of that, a more obtuse angle is going to feel more dull, and it's going to kind of cut more like a wedge than it is like a fine fillet knife or something like that. This knife feels pretty sharp, and that angle feels more refined, more acute than the Great Eastern cutlery knife. So that's the main blade. Like I said, it just feels like, let me see if I can have you listen to it on camera, on the microphone. I don't know if that came through on the microphone. It's better, but it's still very gritty, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Let's see. But I mean, it's just filthy in here. And I'm sure that maybe with a little bit of oil, I could clean that out, but I did not want to do that before I shot the video. So I'm gonna carry this knife probably majority of the week. I'm gonna try to do my best to carry it for a majority of the week. I don't know if that'll work out. The secondary blades, the pull is pretty light, which is not abnormal. The satin finish, I'm gonna get rid of this, guys. It's messing up the focus. This secondary blade here, or the secondary blades, have a nice satin finish. It's pretty even. That's my preferred finish, is the satin finish. There is a sharpening choil down here, so you can get all the way to the base of that blade, make it sharp. I don't know how I feel about the spay blade. I really don't necessarily use spay blades. I do appreciate the nail nicks on these knives. These secondary blades, even though it feels like the bevel is wider, which again would mean that the edge angle is more acute, it doesn't feel quite as sharp as the main blade. The secondary blades feel about as sharp as a factory Great Eastern cutlery knife. The main blade feels a little bit sharper. The other blade here is a pin blade. And again, you've got that nice satin finish, good sharpening choil. You've got the nail nick and that bevel. Again, you can look at it and see that the bevel is a little bit wider. So that would again mean that this edge angle should be more acute. This blade feels a little bit sharper than the other secondary, but still this primary blade is the sharpest of all of the three blades. And it is pretty sharp, sharper than any Great Eastern cutlery that I've ever received from my collection. Overall, it's a decent knife. I don't know. I'm gonna have to give it some more time. This is just my initial impressions on the knife. I do think that overall fit is good. I don't know about overall finish. I just don't like how this main blade is very, very, very gritty. One other thing that I did want to add, I don't necessarily like these cut swedges. I like the hand-drawn swedges, which is more like this. It's more like a bevel, an angled bevel all the way back. This cut swedge that ends like this, I don't necessarily like. However, I do prefer the way Schatt Morgan does it, where the end of the cut is more laid back. It's not as sharp of a shoulder as Great Eastern cutlery knives. And I don't know, here's one. You can see here that shoulder is just basically 90 degrees and it's very sharp. I don't necessarily prefer the cut swedges. I prefer the drawn swedges. Again, that would look more like, actually I don't have a knife over here that has a drawn swedge, but it would be more like this bevel here, but all the way back into this tang. So that's my initial impressions on this Schatt Morgan number 26 Stockman Whittler. Again, this is, I guess, limited, 1 of 30, orange jig bone. It's an okay knife. If I paid $100 for it, I don't know that I would think it was an okay knife. I think I would feel a little bit cheated, but the price I paid for it, I feel like it's okay. It's an all right knife. It's something that I'm going to carry around with me and give it a try, give it a go. The other thing I should mention is these blades are supposed to be 1095, and they're not. These blades are not D2 or some other stainless like Queen likes to use a lot. So again, just my opinion on this knife. It's a decent knife. It's okay. But I don't know that I'm going to necessarily love it. So I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for the views. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the comments. Please comment below. If there's another brand I should check out, please let me know. But I hope to catch you in the next video. See you then.